you have the menu up here, which has links to various
Yep.
things. This screen is the metronome screen where you program everything in, and then over here you've got the presets and playlist manager. So
Yep.
starting on this screen, anywhere you see a down arrow like this, you can tap it, and there's some menu options. So there's some menu options in the preset name. You don't need those for most things.
Yep.
You need this for creating and saving presets. It's just like the save menu in a normal app.
Ah, okay.
And then down the bottom, under the play button, you can toggle the mixer on and off. And then this button on the left is the quick practice event editor. That actually looks like I just found a bug. So I'll come back to that later. But the mix is a useful thing to have in view. And if you just want a normal click, you can use these one-eander faders like Dr. Beat, you know?
Yep.
So that's just for quick metronome functions. So the main thing to understand about this, if we go into the edit pattern page, where you've already been, so
yep.
Across the top you've got whole note down through 16th note, and then in the columns it's just subdivisions of those amounts. So if you wanted to do the table of time, you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes 6 and 8. But the X lets you choose any division, so you can choose quintuplets and septuplets in here, anything up to 32.
Yeah.
And if you want to get really crazy rhythmically, you can use this custom rate, which will let you put 5 in the space of 7 dotted 8s, or I don't know, things that would be even hard to figure out. But you know, some people want those sometimes.
But yeah, but I'm not crazy like that. But yeah.
The one place that this can be useful is, let's say your time signature is 7/8. So this is where you set the time signature, and you want to group 3 3/8 notes and 4/8 notes together, or 5/8 notes. You know, you just want it to be an unusual number. Then you can do, let's say, 5/8 notes in the space of 5/8 notes. That will just give you 5 regular 8 notes all beamed together. That's probably the only place you would need this. What I usually do is come in here and just put in 4 beats of 16th notes. Let's set the time signature.
Yeah, it was more easier early when you show me like 4/4 and just put the 16 notes like that to write the exercise. I tried to write, you know?
Yeah, the old way of going and picking the, So the edit button here is what lets you choose the different rhythms here.
That's good.
There's another kind of, there's a couple of shortcuts. One of them is if you tap and hold this button, it enters the group and brings the edit window up. So sometimes you might find that quicker to do it that way. And then another sort of shortcut thing is that you can tap and hold on this, and you can copy it and then tap and hold and paste. You can also. Did you get that?
And you do that with the iPhone right now?
Yeah,
or this is in your laptop.
This is on my laptop. It's a simulator, but it's the same on the iPhone. So if you tap and hold on these notes here, for example, then you can copy, paste, save, and edit. If you save it, it gets added to a custom palette of rhythms down at the bottom. So if there's ones that you use a lot, you can save them, and then it's kind of quicker to enter, for example, pages from New Breed Reading, that kind of thing. And you can edit these. If you want to arrange them, you select them in order that you want them, and then hit done, and it rearranges them. But it's generally fairly quick to, just enter. If it's a bar of 16ths, to just enter that whole 1, 2, 3, 4, and then click edit and go and use these arrows to go and edit them. One more thing while we're on the notation is, if you go to the whole note column and add a full bar of 16th notes, whoops, so I'll pick 16 and enter a full bar of 16th notes. If you edit this, it will break it up into so then if you wanted to enter like a Kaskara,
yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay, so then because this was one button press down here, this is essentially one note group. So you can tap on this and save it, and now you've got a Kaskara that you can just tap this button to enter a Kaskara up there. So sometimes that might save you some time. I never really use that, but you know, it's a fun feature. So
now I know. Okay, cool.
So the main thing to know about this and to understand how this differs from Logic or any other kind of drum machine or sequencer is that the rhythm is separated from the sounds that you assign to the rhythm. So once I click underneath on this tap to add sounds line, then I get these sound buttons for, you know, R, L, because originally it was just 4 like this, and it was right, left, kick, and hat for entering drum grooves and things. That's what the letters stood for. So by default, the K is set to a kick drum sound, the L is set to a snare, the right is a hi-hat, and the H is set to just a click, because this is the sound that's used if you don't assign any sounds. So if I just hit done now and play, it's playing the sound that's assigned to the H button. And you don't really need to know that, but you can, when it's playing, tap and go to the sound picker and choose a different sound. So if I choose a block like that, and then go back onto the edit pattern page, you will notice that the H sound has been changed to block 1, because that's the sound that's being used if there's nothing entered here.
Okay.
So let's say you wanted to enter a paradiddle. The other thing to know is that you don't have to add a sound for every note. Whatever you enter in here is just looped. So if you wanted a single stroke roll, you just have to go R, L, and now you have a single stroke roll. You can see these are the automatically generated things. So
okay, I see.
When I hit done, now we've got a single stroke roll between the hi-hat and the snare.
But is it possible to get the same sound?
Yep. So I'll do it while it's playing, and then you tap on here, go to the sound picker. So you can just, this is the L sound, this is the R sound. So now they're all snare. Or if you go up here to pads.
Oh yeah, pads,
and the L. So I sometimes set them so that the L is a different sound, so you can hear the difference between the right and the left. So that sound picker is where you go to change the sounds. And down here in the bottom, you will see the letters of anything that you've assigned to that pattern. So at the moment we can only see R and L because that's all I assigned. But if I go in here and edit the pattern, if I put a kick down here, so you have 2 lines of sound that are independent. So down here, if I put a single kick, it's going to play a kick drum on all of these notes. But if I put some rests in, let's say I put 3 rests, now it's playing a kick drum every 4th note.
Okay.
And you can also get to the sound picker page by long pressing on one of these buttons. So if I wanted to change the kick sound, I just long press on here and it brings up the sound picker and it's selected the kick, so I choose a different bass drum here, whatever you want, you know.
Yep.
And you can set the sounds for all of the 8 buttons here just by, so you click the button that you want, and if you want to see this pad 1 that it's set to, then you just tap where it says show or tap here and it shows you where it is. And the reason that it doesn't automatically jump to the sound, like when I click on the kick, the reason it doesn't jump to show you the kick is that you might want to set a number of these to be the same sound. So it's handy to be able to show this sound and then click on the kick and assign it the same sound. And then click on this R and assign it to the same sound. And then if you want to see what something's set to, you tap this button.
Okay.
And then another handy thing in here is if you click on the heart, then those sounds get added to your favorites. So you can click on favorites and you see your most used sounds up here.
Okay.
And then these are categories, so you can jump to toms or hi-hats, or there's drumline sounds, percussion, nice. Melodic sabs, some voice numbers, and sections like, you know, chorus, head, intro. Or you can click on the magnifying glass and just search for cowbell, and you'll see all your cowbells.
Yeah.
So that's the sound picker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the most useful thing about this is to enter a paradiddle, you just have to enter one loop of a paradiddle. So right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. And then if you wanted to hear every, you know, a kick played on every third note, you just do kick, rest, rest, and this is going to loop. So you can see at the end here, you've got a kick there.
Mm-hmm.
And if I play this back and you watch, you'll see that this sticking changes on the repeat. So it's playing over the bar line.
Yep.
And so basically, PolyNome is just like a drummer that you say, here's a rhythm, now play this sticking over that rhythm, and it will just do it. Now, you have this reset button here, and if you tap this,
okay,
it explains, you can view a web page to learn more about it, and it explains what these are. So reset off is just looping whatever you enter over the bar line. If you fill cycle with rests, then you'll notice that this hasn't drawn in anything here. If I have this mode and I hit done, then it just plays what I entered and then leaves it blank.
Okay.
So that might be that might be the way you expect something to work more, you know, unless you enter a sound, it's not going to play one. But it's much quicker to enter a lot of drum grooves if you have this reset off. And then reset each cycle will loop what you have here, but then when the cycle starts over, which means this rhythm starts again, it will reset and start here. So that will play every third note, but then it will jump back to starting on the one here. So that's useful for when you have patterns where you want to play groups of 5 on the ride cymbal, but you want it to resolve on the start of the bar. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And reset each note group will reset the sticking every time you have a new note group. So if I delete this, you can kind of see it in action, that I'll play an R and it's going to go R, and these are automatically generated, but then it resets on the note group. So you put an L in, and then another L, and then another L, and now it's whatever I do in here doesn't show up because it's just repeating this.
Yeah.
The place where that can be useful is if you have something like a click where you want to have a different sound on the start of each thing. So maybe you've got triplets in there, and you've got some sextuplets, and you've got, you know, groups of 8, and you want a cowbell on the first note and then a shaker on all the other notes. You can just do a cowbell, or whatever, we'll do a ride, and then we'll fill the rest with toms. And as long as you put enough toms, then these are all going to play with a ride on the pulse and a tom filling in. Oops. Okay.
Nice, I got it.
That can...
And if you want to play some accents.
Yes, okay, so let's do accents. Quickly, before I do that, I'll just show you that if we'd entered, oh, here's another tip. This delete, this is a cursor here, and you can move it around.
Yep.
You can just tap anywhere you want to select a specific note. Delete deletes like a backspace, you know, like on a computer. So delete deletes things to the right, or it should do. Okay. I'm going to turn this.
It's the same in the iPhone, right? Because I don't have the app on my laptop.
Yeah. On the laptop you have a So you've got the backspace button, deletes things this side, and delete deletes things to the right. But if you long press either of these, it lets you clear the row. So that's just a quick tip. So what I wanted to show you was you could have a paradiddle entered in here, but you can change this notation and it will leave the paradiddle sticking. So we've got 4 groups of 16ths, but then maybe you add some triplets, and then maybe you add some sextuplets, and this will just play the paradiddle over whatever rhythm. So it makes it really easy to, because you're separating the sticking from the rhythm, it makes it very easy to play a lot of, program a lot of patterns that we drummers like to play around with, play a paradiddle over the table of time or whatever you want. So, so that's sticking to the rhythms.
Okay.
So let's just go back to this. And then if you want to add accents, it says at the top here, tap for accents, ties, flams, diddles. So if you tap above the notes, you get this palette. So you can just add an accent to this note. Tap above this one, you can add an accent there. You can tie notes together. You can add diddles and flams and drags and ruffs.
Okay. Cool.
So this is fairly self-explanatory. And as far as I know, I did my best to make these play back in the correct way, but I'm not a drumline drummer. So you might look at this.
That's pretty good, because when you wrote my exercise with the diddle control, it sounds very good. It's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, you were spot on with that. I was very impressed. And I still can't play paradiddles at 250 BPM. Like I was working on my singles the other day, working through this playlist, and I thought, I'll try those paradiddles again. I got close when you posted something like 4 years ago. I worked on it for a while, but yeah, that's hard.
Thanks.
So the one thing to know about this is that by default, when you click up here, this works in a different way to the sounds, in that I put an accent in there and it hasn't repeated it over all of these notes. It's just put it on that one note. So whatever you enter in here by default is just attached to the note you enter it to. However, you can have this function in the same way as the sound, which is useful in a lot of scenarios. So for example, if you have a paradiddle and you want to accent every 4th note, then at the bottom here where it says tap to detach accents, if you tap on that, now it makes this function in the same way. So if I put an accent now, you'll see that it loops that accent. So every note is an accent. So you can use the arrows to move to different notes, and then you can add a spacer. So if I put 3 spacers, now we're accenting every 4th note of the paradiddle. So, okay, so if you wanted to accent every 3rd note of a paradiddle, then you just delete one of these accents, and now you have a paradiddle with accents on every 3rd note. And when you have the accents in there, you have a new fader, and this is the accent amount fader. So if this is at 100%, then all you hear is the accents. And if you have this at 0, the accents and grace notes, so they're same volume. And then in between, you kind of have, you know, different amounts of accenting. So that fader only appears when you have accents in your pattern. Basically, the mixer will only show faders that are relevant. So you have a fader for the L sound and one for the R sound. And if we had kicks in there, you'd have a fader for the kick. So you can play this back and just listen to the right-hand part. Or just listen to the left-hand part. You know?
Yep.
So that's accents. And I think that covers most of what is on this page in terms of certainly the accents and the rudiments, the rhythms and the sounds. What you see when you're on the rhythm is it will tell you how many bars of this time signature you've filled. So I've got 0.75 bars, and then I enter this. Now I've filled a bar and it puts the bar line in for you. What you put in you can enter sounds that go beyond the rhythm you've entered. So let's say I wanted a whole bar of right hand, and then I wanted a whole bar of left hand. If I start typing, then it just loops this rhythm for me. So if the rhythm is always going to be the same, you can just enter whatever sticking you want. Now, when I go back to tap on the rhythm, you'll see that it goes back to that one bar. So so we have one bar of 16th notes, but the rhythm is the sounds are 2 bars long. And you'll see how this, if I go back to this main page, what we see is the rhythm that we entered. And if I play this, it goes through the sticking that you entered. Okay? And this, whatever the length of rhythm you entered, that is considered one cycle. So if you look at, this is loop 1, loop 2, loop 3, loop 4. So if you said play only one bar of this, then it will stop before you get to the left hands. And if you said play twice, then you'll play 2 bars and you get the right hand and the left hand. So just, it might make it more obvious if I can put just a single. So when I delete this, it asks me if I want to clear the sounds. If I say no, then those R's and L's are still remembered. And I could just put a single 16th note. And if I click on the sounds, you'll see that it shows me all of the loops of that are required for the sounds I've entered. But now on this page, whoops. Oh, if I say play twice, now we only get 2 16th notes.
Okay.
But if I set this to loop, so you get the idea of what's happening there. So you get to choose what's on screen. So it might be nice to, for example, with a paradiddle, just show one repeat of the paradiddle.
Yeah.
So like this. So if you made this into a paradiddle, you can just show, you don't have to show a whole bar of it. You can just show the one sticking. Okay. So that's those things. And then other things you may want to play with in the sounds are, you can tap this sound button and you have a keyboard.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and you have conical sounds. And you can put conical chains in there if you're, into all that kind of thing. And also you've got the counting page, which is just a way of manually adding any counting that you want. This is fun. I don't know if you saw this or not, but if, let's say I put in a rhythm. This was done for kind of music teachers, for like student exercises and things. So if you want to add the counting to this, you could manually go 1 E and 2 E and. Okay, or if you tap this, it just puts the counting in for you automatically.
Oh.
And then if you go ahead and edit this, it will okay. It doesn't. Or does it? Hold on. Okay, that method doesn't. This one manually assigns the right counting if you hit this, but it doesn't update it. On the main page, you can tap a rhythm and do auto counting.
Ah, okay.
And that puts the counting in.
That's very cool.
And that will update it. So if I go into the edit pattern page, see this says 1 IANA down here. If I edit this and change it, it's updating the counting as we go. So yeah, that can be useful in some places. And that's got the voice counting on it as well. So you notice when you put the auto counting on it, in the mixer here, you have metronome 1, and you have line 1 and line 2. And line 2 will play that H sound. So you can hear the click. And if I bring the voice down, it's just playing the rhythm, you know. So if sometimes you hear things that you, like extra sounds that you didn't think you'd programmed in, then it might be that the line 2 fader is up. And the reason I did that is that the auto counting won't handle things like quintuplets. So I wanted it to, I think it will do, it does bits of the triplets. Like I think, I can't remember. I was working on putting in the counting for sextuplets. It'll do triplets, but it won't do quintuplets or septuplets because I don't know what you would put as the count for that. But it will just play the other sound, you know, so you can hear the rhythm. It doesn't make it disappear if there's no voice count on it. So that's most of the edit pattern page, which should let you create pretty much anything.
Yeah, it will help. Yeah.
One thing that's potentially worth knowing about is the voice counting in here. So if I just put in like some triplets and some 2s and a 6 like this. So I'll clear the sounds. So there's the counting page down here, which manually lets you enter counting. But on the sound buttons, if you tap and hold, and you look on here, there's voice auto numbers. So voice 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6. So what these do is it will automatically count up to whatever number. So if I choose 1 to 6, and I hit this once, you'll see it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. So this is useful. If I click on this reset and choose reset each note group, now it will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you just have to hit that once, and now you get this counting.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
So, you know, that could be useful.
It can be.
I even put in I made a thing for a Peter Erskine exercise that was playing, I think 8 strokes per hand, and then 7 strokes, and then 6, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there wasn't an easy way at the time to do that. And I think if you do this, you have a grid of notes like this, and you have 2 buttons. Let's say I assign this one to be 1 to 8, and I'll assign the L on the other side to be 1, 2, 8. And I will make the reset be reset voice with new sound. So this is a mode I entered just for that. So that means that if I tap on this, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now if I wanted it to count to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I wanted to count to 4, if I tap this again, it just goes to 6. That will loop when it gets to 8. But if I use a new voice sound, that starts at 1, so I can go 1, 2, 3, for example.
Okay.
And then it's going to go back to, if I don't enter anything else, it's going to loop and go back to this. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. If I turned off the reset voice with new sound, it'll do something really weird. It will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, because that got to 5 and then it would continue on to 6, 7, 8 until it looped.
Got you.
But if you reset voice with new sound, you can have just 2 things and you can count. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, So you can enter things like that. Exercises that count down your hands if you want.
Okay.
So usually
there's so many things you can do. It's crazy.
I know. Well, I'm just this is just a tiny little bit, but at least you'll kind of get an idea, and then you can go, I remember that it could do this thing, and then you can just ask me and I can tell you. But it's good to know that it can do it. So usually if I come to create a new preset, I tap on this disk and I choose reset default preset I'm going to do, which sets it back to just a regular quarter note click. So I usually start by saving as, and I'll save it as say double paradiddle. So now we have a new preset that we're working with, and then I will go and do what I need to do in here. And then it's flashing the exclamation mark, which means we've got unsaved changes, so I'll just save this. And now we've got that double paradiddle preset in the library. It's right here. And in the presets library, at the top, you can sort. So I can say recent and descending or ascending. So now this has got the most recently played things at the top. So yeah, I think, of course, here you've got a whole nother metronome. So everything that we just did in here, you can do in here as well. And you can, for example, when it's empty, you can copy what's in here into this metronome, or you can just edit the pattern. So maybe in this metronome, you want a clave or a cascara. So I saved a cascara, so I can just enter that. So now we've got a cascara underneath the double paradiddle. So there's all sorts of things you can do there. And you could also edit this, and maybe you want this to be in 7/8. And now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you have voice counting. So I'll search for voice 1 to 7 so that you can show that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So there's a lot of different things you can do utilizing this second metronome. Quite often I will use it to display some kind of counting, or if I'm programming in drum grooves, I might have the hi-hat and snare up here and the kick and hi-hat foot down in the bottom, or there's lots of options. But originally, the idea with PolyNome was that you could have two rates playing at the same time. So you might use it for polyrhythms and have 5 against 3 or you know, things like that. So
I just something example. If I want to play an exercise like 8 bars, so is it right? I don't know how can I say that in English, but is it automatically, example, the first measure you have there, you want to write another measure, so it's automatically next, like.
So I'll show you the different ways of doing that. For things that are going to be like 8 bars long, I tend to do them in a playlist. So I'll show you that in a second. You could, in theory, just program all 8 bars in here. So let's say we had a bar of quarter notes, and then a bar of triplets, and then 8th notes, and then triplets again.
Okay.
You know. So
good.
You can do it like this. But it starts to slow down a bit after a while. And if you want to edit this, and then, you know, if you change this, it changes something else somewhere else, and it starts to get a bit messy. But this will play. So, you know, it will play it. But the way I would do this would be to do it in a playlist. So I'll show you how that works.
Good.
So over here we've got all of the presets that you've saved, you know, and created, and you can sort them like this, and you can label them like you do in Gmail. So let's say that this double paradiddle is, you can, and also if you tap this button, that lets you multi-select. So if I tap that, now I can select the double paradiddle, and let's say that, you know, let's say this was a rudiment and something else was a rudiment. Then you can add labels, and I can say rudiments and create that label. And then if I just want to filter on rudiments, I can tap on filter and do that, and now I just see my rudiments. So when you end up with a lot of items in your presets library, it's nice to just add labels, and you can add as many labels as you want. So, and you can filter on multiple labels. So for example, in this filter I have demo, so these are all the things that come as a demo, and then I can also filter on rudiments within that. So there's only one thing that is a demo and is a rudiment, but there are 2 things that are rudiments if I take the demo filter off. So that's quite a powerful way of narrowing things down. So I'll have entries for my band, for example, you know, all countings for different songs will be labeled under my band. And you can also add notes for a preset. So if you tap on this note button, you can say this is a double paradiddle. Play it fast, or whatever you want, and then it shows that you've got a note for that preset. So that's pretty much everything that's up here. Of course, you can search for presets as well to quickly find them. And then the only other, if you want to delete a preset, you've got the trash button down here. And the other thing on this page is this actions button. And so when you've selected something and you tap on actions down here, you get this menu. So for example, if you wanted to select multiple presets, it just tells you that that's the button to do it. You can edit features, you can add the preset to a playlist, you can add a count into the preset, you can add an auto tempo change, and you can paste attributes. But let me think. So you could add this to a playlist by going actions, add to playlist, and it will create a new playlist and it will add that item to it. Or you can go to the playlist page And by default, I think when you load the playlist page, it would have this playlist introduction. And these have got videos that explain how to use the playlists. So you can tap on any of these and it will explain something about, how playlists work. So that's a good place to go. And then also...
Oh, yeah.
So on this page, you can tap the playlist name, and you can go to Playlist Manager there. You can rename the playlist. You can view the practice log for the playlist. You can mix up the items in it. You can print a PDF, which is good for set lists for bands.
That's very cool. Okay. And
you can change the text size. So if I go into Playlist Manager, so basically, just to remind you, the metronome's over here. And on this side, you're viewing one of three things. You're viewing a single playlist, which is a number of items which you can have play individually, or you can have them play into each other. It's like a number of presets all joined together. Or you can view your presets library, which is all of your individual presets that you created. Or you can view Playlist Manager, which is like the presets library, but for playlists. So this is all of the different playlists that you've created. So in here, you've got the same sort things at the top. You can search for them. You can add labels to your playlists and filter on labels, and you can select multiple playlists. And then when you've selected things, you have actions at the bottom for the playlists. So the actions in here, you can rename it, you can duplicate a playlist, you can view a practice log for the playlist, or you can add it to a quick access thing, which I'll show you in a second. So if I load up Will Coxon's 136, you can either select it and tap load, or you can double tap it and that will load it.
Okay.
So this is a demo playlist, and it even has a video that explains.
Let's take a look at how to enter a snare drum piece into PolyNome. I'm going to use Will Coxon's 136.
That might be a good reference, And so this, you were asking about multiple bars. Basically, what I did for this was I had, this is bar 1, this is bar 2, this is bar 3, and they all play into each other. So if I go back to the main page and play.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So it's working its way through all of these items.
Wow.
So, what you need to know.
I'm very impressed.
What you need to know about the playlist is, in here you have all of the playlist items. At the bottom you have the playlist controls, so that's its tempo for any item in here, tempo tweak, moving between the next and previous items, and play and stop. You can change what you see on here. So if I'm playing a gig, let me load up an example set list. So band set list. Here's an example band set list, and these have basically a count off for the song, but with the groove that you've got to play. So it plays the groove to remind me how it goes, and then it stops and moves on to the next item, and then I just reach down and hit play. And if I've got in-ears, it's giving me like a reminder of what I have to play in the tempo. And you'll notice that there's no tempo button on here, because I've already set the tempos for all of these songs, and so I don't want to accidentally end up in the tempo song. I just want to reach down and hit play, or next and previous. So the way you change the buttons is you just tap and hold on the play button, and it brings up this button picker, and you can say I want to view the tempo button, and I want the tempo nudge, and I don't want previous and next buttons, or I do want previous and next buttons. And you can also change the size. So you just want a giant play button, maybe that's all you need, is a big play button that you hit before each song, you know.
Okay.
And then with a band set list, you can go in here and do the PDF, and it formats a PDF. There's preference that says what should you do if you've got a long title. Should you chop the end off, or resize it? And that kind of scales everything to make it a good size for printing, and you can air print it or email it to yourself, send it to band members. Why did I come into this page? Oh, again, you can add notes for a playlist up here. And this I button, remember how in the presets I said you could have notes? Well,
yeah.
Let's say you've got a preset for a song you've got to play, and the notes are for that song. They show up as these I notes. So Easy Lover, if I tap on this red I, I might have...
Okay.
So drums enter on second verse, word up, play verses on cowbell. For some of my songs in my band, I've got the whole like structure of the song if we don't play it very often, just as a reminder. You can have song lyrics in there. You can have all sorts of things.
Cool.
But let me go back to that Will Coxon's. So there are your items in the playlist. You can see the tempo. You can see how many reps will be played of this. Yeah. You can see the number of bars, and then you have this gear icon. And the gear icon lets you change the settings for this item. So at the moment, this plays once. If you want it to play 4 bars of counting, you would tap on this gear and choose repeat and set that to be 4. So this will now play 4 times before anything happens.
Okay.
When those 4 repeats are finished, then whether or not it moves on to the next item and plays the next item depends on the settings of your playlist. So right at the bottom of the playlist, you have playlist controls. This is a little different section, and you can see that it's set to auto advance on plus play, which means that it will move to the next item and it will play.
Okay.
So you might have a set list where you want it to play the click, and then when it finishes, you don't want it to play the next item because that's the counting for the next song. So you don't want all the countings to run into each other. So then you might have on but don't play, so that so these settings, if you turn out auto advance off, then I'll play this and it just stays where it is, and I get that every time. If I turn auto advance on but don't have play when advancing on, then it plays this item and it moves to the next one, but it doesn't play it. So that's what I use for set lists in a band, is just play me this intro, click, and then move to the next song, so that when this song's finished, I'll just hit play and I'm ready to go with the next song. Okay. And on plus play, play when advancing is what you use when you want to work through, a piece of music or a practice routine. And you'll notice all these extra switches appear when you turn on play when advancing. So you can have play sound when advancing, which will play a little bloop when it moves to the next item, which is good in a practice routine to kind of remind you that something's happening. Play sound when looping will play a sound when the playlist goes back to the top, which I'll show you in a second. Ready and voice cue will give you a voice cue into the next item, and announce next item will read out what the next item is called, so you can have it say, singles, doubles, paradiddles, with Siri voice.
Yeah.
So if I turn on announce next item, you can also have it do that 1 bar early. So for this, it's going to be a real mess because that's not a nice thing to pronounce. But let's try it.
1, count 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
So we get 4 bars.
1, 2, 3, 4. Bar 1,
2,
5
ready,
STR, 5 STR, 15 STR, ready, bar 2, single drag, bar 3, 5 STR, 5 STR, 10 STR.
So, you know.
So yeah, it's not necessary.
No, but the reason that's in there is if you know, when you do, like, you play a musical or something and there's cue tracks and it's like chorus, or you're playing a function band, you know, and they've got somebody reading out the sections, you can create a cue track really easily by just naming the sections, and it will say chorus, ready, and cue you into that section.
Yeah.
The ready and is useful. I've been using that. I created a Stone Killer workout that gives you, 1 bar of right hand, 1 bar of left hand, 2 of right, 2 of left, and the ready and cues me into the next hand. So you get like 1, ready and, ready and. But I'm going to turn that off. And then at the bottom you have playlist looping, and that means that when you get to the last item in a playlist, it will jump back to the top and start over, which is good for practice routines. And if the playlist is set to loop, you can turn on tempo change and tell it to increase by a certain BPM every time it loops. And you can set boundaries. I'll show you that stuff now, I think, because this is how you would divide things up and do different bars. So if you had an 8-bar pattern, I would do it as 8 separate items, and that makes it easy to edit a single bar or to repeat 1 bar multiple times. But let me show you something that will be useful in that situation. So you'll notice here, I think this is accidental, but the counting is set to 100 BPM. Bar 1 is 100 BPM. But bar 2 is 120. And so if you've programmed something that's got, 30 bars of music and you want to do it at a different tempo, you don't want to have to set all 29 tempos. You don't want to have to go like 130 and then, 130 for this. So this padlock here locks out the tempo, and so they will all play at whatever tempo you've got set here. So I don't know if you saw that. If I click the padlock, see how there's a little padlock on all of these items? So they all play at 120, right?
Yep.
But if I tap the padlock here, you'll see that these disappear and you see their individual tempos. So because you might have something where you want different tempos for different sections, but you might want to just lock them all together. So
okay.
And there's some other things that you can do. So let me show you creating a playlist from scratch. So you can do it from the playlist page. There's a plus in the top right, and one of the options is new playlist. So we'll call it 8-bar thing. So that creates an empty playlist for us. And then to add an item to this, you tap the plus, and you can either add presets from library. So if you've already got paradiddles and double paradiddles and what have you in the library, if you tap this, it just brings up the library, and you can add that to it, and you can add this to it, and you can add whatever else to it. And when you're done, hit done, you'll see they're in there. And these are set to loop. That's set to loop, and that's set to loop. So this will just play forever. Even though this is play when advancing, it, if it's looped, it never reaches the end of this, so it won't ever move to this item. If I want to rearrange these or delete things, the pencil button is edit mode, so you can use the handles to drag them around, or you can select them and delete them. So let's program in something that you want. So like what did you want to program in as an 8-bar pattern?
Whatever.
Well, should we do should we do like singles, doubles, paradiddles, or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we tap on the plus, and we'll do a new entry in playlist, and this will give us a new entry. So I'll call it singles.
Singles, yeah.
Okay. Now, this pop-up is telling me that I have something called singles somewhere else in the app, and it's saying, do I want to use a copy of that, or do I want to create a standalone thing in this playlist that is called singles? And the difference is, if I use the existing one, it will put a copy in, but if I change that thing anywhere else in the app, it might also update this version.
Okay, so let's create a standalone.
Yes. But that's sometimes useful if you have one song that you play in 3 different bands, and then you decide, oh, you know what, I should play that song 2 BPM faster, or I want a different sound for that. You can have it update in all places at once. So when you create a new item, it bases it on your default preset. So if we go and look at this, it's set to the default. So now I want to edit this and make it be singles. So we edit pattern. I'll just put in 4 beats of 16ths, and I'll just put in right, left.
Yeah.
So now we've got single stroke roll, and I'll save. Now it's a single stroke roll between the hi-hat and the snare. I'm going to leave it like that just for a second. Okay, so now we go back and we want doubles. So I can do plus. Now I can do a new entry, or I can make a duplicate of this one and just give it a new name. So if I call it doubles, I'll use a standalone. So
I just changed the sticking.
Yeah, exactly. So edit pattern, and then right, left, and save. So now we've got singles into doubles. And then let's do one more. Let's do paradiddles. So I'll click on plus, duplicate with new name, paradiddles. And then we'll change the sticking to the paradiddle. Right, left, left. And I'll put in the accents. So I'll detach and put in accent every 4th note. Save changes.
Okay, yeah.
So let's just play around with this little playlist. So at the moment, these are all set to loop. There's various ways of setting the reps of these. One of them is to tap on the gear and choose repeat once, play just one repeat of that. You can also say play this for a minute, you know, or 20 seconds or something like that. But for now we'll choose 1 rep of that. But anytime you find yourself repeating something and you think this seems like a long-winded thing to do, then imagine that I probably made a faster way to do it, because I don't like repeating work. So if we wanted to set all of these to be 1 rep, then it takes a long time to click on the gear and set 1 for every single thing. Okay, so there's some quicker ways of doing it. One of them is to go into edit mode and select them all, and you can even click on select all and it will select them all for you. And then in the actions menu, you'll see tempo, rep, and timer options. So that's for setting the tempo and the reps or the timer. And if I click on this, then I can say, do I want to do tempo or rep or timer? So I say I want rep, and I can set all of reps. And then there's these other options for ramp and random, which I'll show you in a second. But you can go set reps to be 1 rep each. So now you've set them all to 1 rep. Okay, so this edit menu and the actions menu, there's a lot of things in here that are useful. But even that was a lot of clicks. So if I want to set all of these to 4 reps, there's this row at the bottom that's called playlist time. And this shows you a little bit of information about this playlist, it says the first loop is going to take 6 seconds to play through, which is useful if you're doing a practice routine. And so this is kind of an information row, you know. But also if you tap it, you get some shortcuts to set all reps, set all timers, set all tempos. So you can set all reps to 4, and that quickly sets the reps of all these to 4 reps. So that's the quickest way to set everything to be the same. And now you'll see that it tells me the first loop will take 24 seconds to play through. So this is cool for creating practice routines.
Oh yeah, totally.
So if we play this now, you get 4 reps of singles, and then it goes to 4 reps of doubles. And on this page, you can see it.
Yeah.
And then we get to the Paradiddles. So this playlist time row, if I change the tempo, so I lock the tempo here so that they're all playing at the same tempo. If I change the tempo to 80, you'll see this playlist time row is updated. Now it will take us 36 seconds to go through all that.
Got it.
So here's a cool thing for practice routines. In the playlist controls row, we had the looping and the tempo changes. So if this playlist is set to loop, like this, and if you turn on tempo change, you can say, for example, increase by 5 BPM, and then every time it loops, it will go up by 5 BPM. And then you can turn on tempo boundaries, and you can say, okay, I want the minimum tempo to be 150, and I want the maximum tempo to be 200. And then you can select an action, and the action is what happens when you reach one of these boundaries. Okay, so if we say the action is stop, then when it reaches 200 it will stop. If the action is reset, then when it reaches 200 it will go back to the initial tempo and you know, keep going slow to fast, slow to fast.
Okay.
Reverse will go up to 200 and then back down to 150 and then back up to 200. Hold will get to 200 and then just keep it at 200. So that's kind of like get up to a fast tempo and then just maintain that tempo for as long as you can.
Okay.
And reverse and stop is like a warm up, cool down, and then stop.
Yeah.
So some of these, reverse and stop has a finite end point because it will stop at the end of that. Hold doesn't have an end point because it will reach 200 and then it will just loop at 200. Reverse doesn't have an end point because that will just go up and down forever. But stop has an end point because it will stop when it reaches 200. So each of these either has an end point or doesn't. And the reason that I say that is that this playlist time will calculate how long it'll take to do this whole exercise. So this,
really? Yeah.
This says that your first loop takes 36 seconds, and the whole playlist going from 100 to whatever to 250 and stopping is 25 loops, and it's going to take 9 minutes to do that.
Yeah.
And if I start the tempo at 100, then it's a little less because it doesn't take as long to get to 250. You know, so it will calculate how long your practice routine is going to be, which I think is kind of fun. And if I set all of these reps to 1 instead of 4, now the whole thing's only going to take 1.5 minutes because we play each for less. So I can play this through just a little bit and you'll see the tempo changes happening. You'll see rep 2 here, plus 5 BPM. And then it will go plus 10 BPM. So it would do that until it, hits the thing. And then in playlist controls, you remember there was play sound when looping. If I turn that on, then that plays a little sound to let you know. So it kind of like, if it gets slower, it does a fiddle-oom.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. So.
Wow. Okay.
We're getting close. So I'm going to show you.
The thing is to remember.
I know. Is your brain completely fried yet?
My brain is still okay, but I took some notes. Anyway, I will work on your apps anyway and just try things.
Yeah.
And if I have question, I will,
Yeah.
There's another question I want to ask.
Yes.
Do you know if is there a way to put the notes like bigger in the iPhone?
Yeah.
Maybe on the Skype view, maybe? I don't know.
Let me see if this keeps sharing this. Oh, it won't record this, but if I turn this sideways, you can hide the mixer and you can pinch to zoom on here. You see that?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah? I want to try. Seven. I think I'm not able to do it.
Do you have your screen lock on? Do you have orientation lock on that?
Maybe I will try. Show presets. Maybe.
You know what I mean in the Can you see my camera or just PolyNome? Like if you pull down from the top of the iPhone, there's a little lock. Can you see me?
Where?
Can you see my face?
Wait.
On here.
I want to because I'm not able to put your face big.
Well, you know where you pull down on your iPhone to get screen recording and brightness. There's a padlock with an arrow that locks into portrait. Have you got that switched on?
Yeah. Got it.
So if you switch that off, you should be able to turn PolyNome into landscape.
I don't know if it's the right thing. I did. No, maybe not. Wait.
So in control panel, you need to make sure that it's not red.
Okay, I think I got it.
You got it?
Okay. Yeah. Whoa. Okay.
Did you get it?
Yes. Yay. I got it. Thank you. Okay. Cool.
So at the moment, when you're in landscape, you have the buttons on the right side. I think it's going to be really hard to do, but I'm going to see at some point if you're not using this metronome, perhaps if I can have a way of having the buttons under here, so you would get a little bit more screen real estate. But there is a cool thing when you're in this mode, that if you have big numbers turned on, so in the fader, in the mixers down here, on the left you've got this big numbers fader, and that puts the count over here, which is nice for display sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm working on some improvements to the big numbers thing so that you don't have to do it in the mixer. Like in my version now, I can tap here and turn big numbers on and off, which is quicker and easier. So yeah, that's how you make that bigger. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a power user function, because one of the problems, in a way, if you separate stuff into all of these different items, we know we can change all the tempo in one go easily enough. But if I change the singles, if I say, okay, I want this to be played on a pad, so I go to sound picker, and I choose pads, and I set the right hand to be pad 1 and the left hand to be pad 2. And then I save. So now our playlist sounds like this. So I'm still on the hi-hat and the snare drum for these other ones, and that would take a long time to go in here and set all of the sounds to be the pads, right? That's like, that's too long. So let me load the one where I have the pads. Remember that we could click on the preset name in here. When you click on here, there's an option for copy preset. And what this does is it copies. There's a learn about copy and paste. So if you ever forget, you can just click on this and it will load a website and show you. But what it does is it copies the pattern and the sticking and the sounds of this metronome and that metronome and the tempo and all of this other information into a clipboard in PolyNome. And then on this playlist, you can click on the pencil and you can select everything. And one of the options in the actions menu down here, this is where everything happens in playlists and presets, is in the actions menu. One of the options is paste attributes. And what that means is we can paste different elements of what we copied. So first of all, it makes you choose the source metronome. So we've copied in the clipboard the singles preset, and it's metronome 1 is where we had the pattern. So that's the source metronome. And in the 3 selected presets that we want to paste to, we want to paste into metronome 1. If you select all and paste, it will make all of those presets be single stroke roll, and that's not what we want. All we want to paste is the sounds that we assigned to those letters. So if you scroll down here, sound button sounds, that's the sounds assigned to the sound buttons. If we paste those, all that's going to do is overwrite the sounds of the R and L letters. So if I paste now, then all of these will now be played on pads. So that's there's a bug that the accent's not playing there. I'm just going to make a note of the fact that I found a bug. What did I do then? I pasted sounds and it overwrote. Yeah, I don't know why that broke the accenting on there, but I'll try and fix that. That's definitely a bug. Yeah, I've noticed that with something else. Anyway, it gets complicated in the background. Anyway, the paste sounds thing is useful, or the paste attributes is useful when you have a big playlist and you want to change something in all of them. You could also, for example, have the overlay sounds here. I could turn up this bar fader and I could change the sounds of the overlay sounds. So these Dr. Beat faders that we looked at right at the beginning, you can set the sounds for these by tapping change sounds here. And I can search for voice. I can choose auto voice count.
Voice count.
For the one sound, and that will just count the beats in the bar.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So if I wanted to paste that auto voice count sound to all of them, I select the singles
1, 2,
where I have that voice count, and then I copy the preset and then paste it to all of these. So select all, paste attributes, and there it's just the overlay sounds and volumes I want to paste. So if I do that, now we should have that voice counting through all of these.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
So that's what I mean by there's sometimes hidden features to make your life easier, because I don't want to sit here and do the same thing over and over and over again. I want quick ways to do things.
Yeah. Very interesting. Oh, nice.
So that's how you would do that. And then let me quickly show you some alternatives. So let's say I'll turn off the playlist looping. And that turns off our automatic tempo control. Now, let's say, for example, that you wanted to work on your paradiddles. So I'm going to delete the singles and doubles from this. In fact, you know what? I'll just show you something. I'll go to Playlist Manager, and this is the one that we just created. I'm going to go to Actions and duplicate the playlist and create a standalone copy, which means that it won't link any of the items in the lists, and call it Paradiddle Practice. So I load this, and it's the same thing, and that just means that that other playlist we created, I can keep it there in case I want to go back to it and use it later. So for this one, let's delete the singles and doubles. Now, I just got a thought. You could do one for your paradiddle exercises where you have, the whole paradiddle, and then you have just parts of it, and have those as exercises that you work through for 8 bars each, and then the tempo increases. But let's say that you have 20 minutes and you want to work on your paradiddles, and you want to work on them at different speeds, but you don't want to just work, you don't want to go from slow to fast, because that's too boring. Or you're playing a groove, you have a groove that you want to work on, and maybe practicing that groove from slow to fast is encouraging you speeding up on the gig, and really you just want to work at it at different tempos, but you kind of want to randomize the order, right? So this is just to demonstrate a few features. So let's say we want to do 10 different tempos. So if I want to make 10 copies of this, I can either click on the plus up here and duplicate entry and do that 9 times. But again, there's probably a quicker way, because I don't like repeating myself. So you click on the pencil to edit. I can select this, and then in the Actions menu, there's a duplicate selection option. And that would also work for multiple items. So you could do the singles, doubles, paradiddles. You could duplicate all 3 and make multiple copies. So I'll duplicate selection, and I'll make 9 copies. So now we've got 10 versions of the paradiddles. I want to set different tempos, so I'm going to unlock that. So now I can set the tempos individually for all of these. And let's say I want to work between 100 and 200 BPM. So I could manually set these. So I'm going to set this one to 100. But again, to manually set all of these individually is too much work for me. So if you set the last one to 200, then if you remember, you click on the pencil and select all. And remember, in the actions, there was this tempo, rep, and time options. So in tempo options, you have set tempo, which will set them all to be the same. Ramp tempo will increase the tempo from the first item to the last item, which is what I want to do. And random tempos will set random tempos in that range. And then there's metric modulation if you want to work on metric modulation stuff. But if I choose ramp tempo, you'll see now we've got 100, 111, 122, 133, 144, and then it goes up to 200. So that's evenly spread the tempos out between our 2 ranges. And it plays 1 rep each. So if I just play them through.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
You see the tempo increasing.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
That's good.
And then you can mix them up. So you can click on the playlist name and there's shuffle playlist, and that will randomize the order. So now you've got all of those tempos, but in a random order.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
You know, and you could even use that with just a normal click and have like a guess the tempo game where you shuffle them up and then you play it, and it, you know, you have to see how close you can guess what the tempo is.
Yeah.
So, what was I going to say? So that lets you ramp them. Oh, and then let's say that you've got 20 minutes to work on all these tempos. In this playlist time row, if you tap on that, you can even do a thing that says set first loop time. And if you set that to 20 minutes, well, let's say 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Set it to 10 minutes. You got 10 minutes to practice. That sets all of these. Does it? What did that do? Yeah, it set the reps on all of these so that it will take you 10 minutes to get through that playlist. And if you only have 5 minutes, got 5 minutes to do it, it's set 30 seconds on each of these so that the whole thing will take you 5 minutes to get through. So you can kind of create a practice routine and then quickly tell it how much time you have, and it will tweak the times of all of the items in there to, you know, spread it out.
Okay.
So I think, what else is in here? So one more thing. If I set all of these reps to 1, in fact, let me do this with a different thing. Let's do it with this Will Coxon's one. So one useful thing to know is that the count. Let me see. You can change what happens when these items are reached, and this little play icon on the left is basically saying that when we get to this item, it's going to play. But if you wanted to say skip over the drag here, you can click on the gear icon and there's a action when reached. So if I set that to skip when reached, then this one won't be played. So we'll see it'll go count in and then this, and then it'll jump to bar 3.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2,
oh, that's playing 4 ups a bit.
Bar 1. 5 STR, 5 STR, 15 STR.
Turn off Siri announcing all of this stuff. You get the idea. It's going to skip this one.
Yeah.
The skip is usually good for a count-in when you have a playlist that loops. So you have a count-in that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it plays your paradiddles and your singles and your doubles, and then it loops, and you don't want it to count in the second time. You know, you only wanted it to count in the first time. So if you set something to skip when reached, it will only play if you select it and then hit play. And the reason that you might want a stop when reached is maybe you've got a set list for your band, and the first item is a count off for the first song, and you want it to play 2 bars, and then you want it to stop and wait for you with the next song. But maybe the next song is a click for the whole song, and it's the first click is 4/4 for 32 bars, and then it goes into a click for 7/8 for 16 bars, and then goes into a click for 4/4. You know, so you can have like these next 3 items will all play into each other as sections of a song, and then it will stop when it gets to the next song. So you can mix and match whether things continue to play when they get there or when they stop when they get there.
Okay.
So that's most of the things in the app, and then just a cool thing in the background.
That's good. It's a good lesson. It's a good lesson.
I'm going to quickly show. I'll promise I'll stop in a second.
No problem.
If you look at this, under the play button here, there's this event editor. So if I play this, you see how it just added a new thing. We just played the single drag for 1 second, and we played it 120 beats a minute, and we played it on Sunday, 29th of March at 1:29. That's like if you were logging everything. This shows you how much time you've done today, and there's all of these things are logged. So this is since we started recording this video. This is all of the events we've logged, and this is the practice log, which you can access from here. And you can view the practice log for everything, or just the current preset, or just the current playlist.
Okay.
Now that's kind of cool because let's say we go back to this 8-bar thing that we did with the Paradiddles. I can look at this and view the practice log for just this preset, and I can find out when I last played it and what tempo I played it at and how long I played it for. So I played this for 21 seconds today, and my streak is how many days in a row I've practiced it, and the maximum tempo that I've hit is 120. And if I swipe across, I can see all of the individual times that I played that item. So I played it at 100 BPM, and I played it at 105, and I played it at 120. And if I entered any notes for those, they would show up in here. And so let's go back and view the practice log for everything. So this is all the data for everything that I've practiced. So today I've practiced for 2 minutes. 4 days ago I practiced for 13 seconds. In the last week I've played for 3 minutes, and in the previous week I played for 5 minutes. In the last month I played for 9 minutes. In the previous month I played for 7 minutes. So these are all if you always keep these green, then you've always done more practice than you did in the previous period, which is kind of fun. You can see maximum tempo, and then you can view charts, and I can see all the days I practiced and how long for, and I can see how much time I spent on which presets and on which playlists, and also which tempos. So you can look and see which tempos you need to do more work on, and you can zoom in and move through these graphs. But what I like in this is if you're working on paradiddle speed or something, and you have a workout routine for that, and you get to 265 and your left hand starts to tense up, you can add a note on that practice event. Yeah. So let's say this was the paradiddle and you played it at 265, and you were looping this paradiddle.
1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2.
So you stop and you got 4 seconds, and you put a note that says left hand fell off. So that will show up in your practice log. So I can view the practice log for this current preset, and you can view events with notes down here, which will just show you events that you added notes for, and you can read those notes. And you can also generate a practice report and say, show me only events with notes, and that will show you all the events where you had notes. So left hand fell off, but it also shows you your cumulative practice time. So this will say like you practiced 6 hours before you got to this note where you said your left hand fell off, and then maybe you practice for another month and you do another note that said I glued my left hand back on and now I can play at 280, and it will tell you how much time you had spent on that preset between each time that you had to enter a note. So that's a nice way of keeping track of things. And you can also set goals in here. You can say I want to practice so much time a day. So you can say I want to practice for like 3 hours a day, and I want to log 100 hours of practice in total over a certain period of time, and I get to a certain tempo, and then you'll see this goal thing where today I've done 25 today I've done 25 seconds and my goal is 3 hours, and so these kind of fill up. In 7 days I want to hit 21 hours, and it'll show you how much on track you are to hit your goals. And finally, you have this green book down here, which is also in here, which is like a daily journal. and you can use that to enter general notes about your practice. So you just have one page of your daily journal for any particular day. So that's where you can just make a note of the things that you worked on, or you can pick a date in the future and say on that day I want to work on these things, or whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much everything.